Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arafire and welcome to another episode of Look Out and Shout. Been away for a few days, back to the grind because today we are reviewing MMC or Ocular Max Mastermind Creations version of Hotspot with their PS-23 Ignis. This is their version, as I say, of the Protectobot Hotspot. And it's a very big box. It's very nice. Typical kind of presentation that they've been doing so far. You get a nice sort of artwork of Hotspot on the front and again on the side. I quite like that. Also, we have images of them all standing in a row, and you have the three that are out so far with the silhouettes of the two bots remaining for this set. On the back of the box, you have the transformation sequence of how he goes into combine mode, into truck mode, and then eventually into robot mode, along with his base mode. The beloved base modes. So as I've said before with this, as it says on the box as well, this is an all built-in feature, and this has been the case for the other two releases that I've reviewed as well on this channel, but this is very much going to be the case for this figure as well. For those who don't know, Hotspot is the character who will make up the torso of Defensor, the big combiner on the top of the box. All the combining ports and all the structure and the frame of the combiner will be within this figure. There's no additional parts forming, at least not yet. But of course, you too can pick up your own version of this character by heading over to ShowZstore.com, where, if you feel so kind, you can enter the support your favourite reviewer code. In that field, enter code FIRE1, FYRE1. That will enable some points that you spend on your account to also be shared to my channel, which I can then use for reviews on purchases such as these, which I have used points for. Thank you once again to those who have supported me so far. I will put a link in the description below that will take you to this very figure. Also on that, an additional point, ShowZ are doing something at the moment where if you tout about a purchase that you've made, you can link it to the website, link it to their page, and also tag ShowZ in the post. You get some points added to your account as well. So do make sure you pick up on that offer as well. Now inside the box comes the figure itself, which is slightly mistransformed out of the box. I'll put some comments to that throughout this video. Also comes with the instructions, which are laid out and go on quite a way. I don't know if you can see all of that. It's on the back as well. So this is going to be quite a lot of instructions for getting him into all four of his modes. The instructions are okay. They are okay in parts, but I will say when you get to putting him into combined form, that's going to be a bit more involved. He comes with his stat card as well, with the numbers on the back. This one is in English, and we have lots of 9s and 7s and the odd 4. That's for speed. He comes with his other accessories that I'll show you in the figure itself. And he comes with a reflective strip, which you can use on the back of the box. For the tech specs that are down here, and I mean, it hides the red and shows the blue line. Yeah, and it's the same as the tech specs that are on the back of the card. I don't really get it. It's a thing, and it's a strip that they provide you with. Right, that's enough of that. Let's get into the figure itself, shall we? And there he is in his robot mode. Now, not having the previous MMC release of the Combaticons, and this is MMC, even though it says Ocular Max, it is MMC, I was not prepared for this guy to be of the stature that he is. Damn, that is impressive. He is a very, very tall boy. He is a very stocky, well-built, as you expect from MMC. It is a very well-built figure. Straight out of the box, he's large, he comes in robot mode, and it is a very nice representation of Hotspot. We don't have a ladder hanging off the back of him, it's all collapsed within the robot. Okay, first impressions are he has got two massive shoulder pads on him, very 1980s style, but other than that, it is a very heffing truck in a robot form. And that's probably all you can really ask for the Hotspot character. I do really like it. The antenna either side of his head, which you'll see a bit more in a minute, comes pincered in, so you have to pry those open. That can be a tiny bit fiddly, don't break it of course. But other than that, it looks brilliant. It has very good presence and some decent articulation as well, which we'll get into. But it's definitely a blue boy. It's definitely a big boy. It is a very nicely presented big structure figure from MMC, Ocular Max. Let's get in for a closer look. Now, speaking of which, you'll see how far out I've had to come with my camera just to get it all into shot. But it is if I get the camera up a bit, you'll see what we're dealing with. One thing I was concerned of seeing the images is I wondered if the ankles looked a bit nothing. I felt as well when it comes to first aid of the set, the toes, or they just look very much like nubs, and I thought this could be the same with this figure, but very good articulation, and I'll get into that a bit more in a minute. It takes away of what is a very stocky figure. There's not much in way of die cast here, but there is a lot of heft besides. It's a very solid figure. Nothing feels particularly hollow. Obviously, it's going to be the torso of Defensor, so the legs here hold a lot of ratchets, and whilst it's not die cast heavy, it doesn't particularly feel like it needs to be. It doesn't feel fragile. It's very, very much built with that combined form, and how they've more or less made Defensor look like Hotspot rather than a Hotspot that turns into Defensor. I think that's how I'm looking at this figure. You can see a combiner's frame here, no question. But I really do like how it looks. The head is nice, and I'll try and get it into a bit of focus. I don't know if you'll see, because it's actually quite a bit of a nightmare for a white light box with a light blue figure. The eyes, they are painted. They do have a tinge to them of a metallic paint, of that dark red. But they are a bit small maybe, and they can look a little bit lost. That's one thing I would say, is they do kind of look a little bit easy to miss. The red on the chest is actually brighter than the red of the eyes, so naturally your eyes go to this red first. A minor nitpick, but that's just something I've noticed. I wished to not come across so dead. Could the eyes have been a bit bigger, maybe come down the face a bit more, so they would have had more volume of red and been that little bit more eye-catching. It's a nitpick, but it's just one thing I've thought of could maybe have been done differently. But articulation-wise, you can look up pretty good, down sort of not an awful lot, and left and right is pretty good as well. But again, what I've done here, as you've seen, those antennae have now gone in, and he looks like he's had a bit of a shave. So what I get is just a little spludger tool, pry them out either side. It's easy done. It's just something that you have to do to kind of get them back to steady state. But that's how the combiner head flips over his head, as I understand it. They try to tuck in a little bit so the head can sit on without breaking anything. Articulation for the shoulder is outward on a friction, to the side on a softish ratchet, but a ratchet nevertheless. Now this is probably, again, my only other issue with this is the elbows and how they do move independently. You end up doing that a lot, which is part of the transformation. But to get the elbow to turn, you want to grip onto the shoulder. It will clear one another, it will separate, but you end up doing that a lot, or at least I have. But you do get a nice double elbow out of it, which is nice to hold up. The hands I really like, very stocky, well built hands, individual finger articulation as well, and a thumb that comes across. Waist rotation on a friction, very nice. Now the legs, he will go outwards on, again, that same softest ratchet that goes out on the shoulder. Forward, have a listen to this, hip stirrup comes up. That's an ab crunch. There we go. Quite a stocky 90-degree ratchet on the hip going outwards. And I'd say probably a 90 bend on the knee as well. But you imagine these are holding other limbs in place. They've got to have that toughness. Now, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting an ab crunch. I really wasn't. There it is. And that gives the look down, towering effect that he will need. I do like that. Actually, that feels like a very strong ratchet in there. Collapses together nicely. And as mentioned as well, a very good ankle tilt, which is actually quite full attention. And I've seen others getting him into this pose, and it kind of squashes any concerns I had around the ankles or the toes in general, but he takes the weight really well. This is as much down to the tension on the hips as it is for the ankles, but it holds what is a very solid, very dense plastic figure. So that is quite impressive. Accessory-wise, at least for Hotspot, he comes with these two guns. Two are just the same as each other, which are meant for Defensor as much as they're meant for Hotspot. Now, it is worth pointing out with these guns, they have two forms of clasps to them. So, try and show you. One peg comes down, I believe I got this right. For the thicker gun holster, that's going to be much more for defense, or the bigger hand, the bigger, deeper grip. But it's more or less the same that comes down. If I fold the handle of the gun in, the grip of the hand in, a shorter section comes down, which I have to check this with the instructions, but I think that's much more for Hotspot himself. And I think that is right, because there he is holding both his guns. They don't droop, they're not that heavy, so he will hold these pretty well. I will say I've done these two different ways, and you probably won't see until I show you. I don't think the hands come round on them fully, so what I've done is, as the peg on his hand is shorter than the groove it sits in, if you put it a bit more to the top, the fingers don't quite go all the way around the handle of the gun, but you can get the thumb across. Whereas I've done on this one, I put the groove of the gun towards the bottom of the groove of the hand, and you get all of the fingers round, but the thumb tucks in. I don't know. It's probably up to you. It's a very nitpick minor difference. It's not going to make a big difference in the grand scheme of things, but he holds them pretty well. Full extension out with no droopage whatsoever. So yeah, very good. We've got the dual-wielding Hotspot weaponry. Okay, now on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside MMC, Ocular Max's first offerings of the Protectobot lines. This is their Medicus, their version of a first aid. You can see what I mean with that kind of concern I had over the short, stumpy feet. They both kind of had it, but it doesn't turn out to be a deal breaker at all. They look really good. You can see how much bigger this is. I think I'll find this when this set is all done, but this Hotspot may just be that shade too big. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I like it for its big build, and Hotspot was bigger. I just have it in my head, was he this big? Was he really dwarfing as much? But he is being the torso of the combined mode. I like it for the big aspect of it. I like the big bot feel. But when you put him alongside First Aid, who is going with that Masterpiece Carbot scale, and he's up to more or less his waist, you do think, should he be that big? Should he maybe be just that shade shorter to get in line? But I do like it nevertheless. It is a very nice aesthetic they're going for here. And here he is alongside MMC's second release, Navigant. Much the same here. It just shows the line that we're going down, and yeah, you can see the similarities. That same kind of dusty red is being used. And when you put all three together, you can see this is going to look a very nice set when it's all said and done. We're allegedly going to be getting blades next, I suppose. He was one that was teased and put out pre-orders for ahead of Groove. I think Groove will be the last of this set, but it does look good. I can imagine two more of a similar height than these two standing in front to have the complete Protectobot team. But that is a nice sight with all three together. Now I just want to show you this comparison. Here he is alongside Fans Toys Lupus. Different range, different company, different build, different materials. But the size difference, I can't express this enough. This is kind of what I like to look for Masterpiece scaling and grade. That kind of 9 to 10 inches tall or so, which Hotspot massively dwarfs. You look at these kind of figures in the Fans Toys range and Takara as well. This is kind of the size they're working to for bots outside of the Carbot scale. And now this has come along and completely reset that, I think. I think you could get away with some of the bigger characters like a Cyclonus, like a Galvatron, like a even Ultra Magnus or Rodimus to be on par with Hotspot than, say, with this size. It's just got my attention now looking at it thinking, wow, does that mean now that the scale has changed? Because this is such a big bot that I think maybe should be standing shoulder to shoulder with some of the other characters, and putting it alongside a Fans Toys offering, you really do see that. But this I do love. Here he is alongside Fans Toys Maverick, their version of a G1 Silverbolt, the two leader bots. Different companies, different styles, but I like this. This feels like a right commander build for me. Just when you put these two together, and I haven't got MMC's version of Onslaught, but I know it scales similarly, and also with the Fans Toys Road King as well. You get those big torso bots all together. They're more or less of a similar height. To me, that feels right. And this is surprisingly on point for two different companies. They've really kind of kept that similar commander bot scale for the Scramble City bots. I do really, really like how they look side by side in a collection. And of course, this is a incomplete set as of recording, so I will be putting these two teams side by side with Protectobots and Aerial bots. That looks very cool. Now this is an exceptional sight. Here he is alongside Takara's MP22 Ultra Magnus. Now a lot of people said that when this came out it was too big. I've defended this bot for a long time. It's one of my favourite ones. I think Magnus should be big, but it's really not far off a modern day hotspot. I mean, this is what, I don't know, 2015 maybe? Got to be coming up 10 years old, maybe 2016. And look at how close hotspot drives it. I think this could set a standard now. I do think this is how big Magnus should be anyway, so I'm fine with that. But again, just how big is this guy? Does he make the bigger bots, the more larger-than-life characters like a Grimlock, like a Prime, need to be on this kind of scale now? At least what Magnus was doing. Magnus dwarfs a lot of the other Takara figures, and certainly some of the Fans Toys ones. So now with MMC producing bots on that standard, does that change the game? Seeing it together, it's hard to say otherwise. Okay, let's get him transformed up, shall we? And here he is in his vehicle mode, and that is a rather surprisingly big fire truck. It's a pretty good transformation, I have to say. Transforming the other two limb bots that we've got so far, Medicus and Navigant, they're more fiddly, and there's bits there. I don't know if it's a QC issue, but bits on the limb bots like to fall off and ping apart. I don't get that feeling with this. I put that largely down to its size, and okay, a bit of time has passed and a bit more maybe thought has gone into it, but assembling this, it is arguably straightforward in that it's a very square robot going into a very cylinder-like structure, so you can see where the shoulders become the front, where the legs really become the back, and it's pretty straightforward in and of itself. But there are some bits that are quite clever, how you have to put the combiner head over the robot head just to house it within the chest and therefore bring the ladder fully out. The ladder is cascaded into the back of the body and fully extends out to be a ladder of itself. Things like that are good. A couple of funny bits that are just a bit odd, but broadly speaking, a good transformation and a very good end product. I always found Hotspot's alt mode, a blue fire engine, a bit of a strange one. I just always associate fire engines with red, a generic red colour, and I always thought blue was a bit strange. But that being said, it looks very, very nice. Now, much like with Navigant, the blacked out windscreens, that's just what they've gone for. They're not clear transparent. It's just solid black, smoky black. And I guess that can come across a little bit dead. When you see it alongside Medicus, maybe you see more what I mean. But that's how he looks. He's a very stocky lad, very big boy, but a very good fire engine in and of itself. Let's get in for a closer look. Now what I'll first show you is straight away, he rolls quite happily. All 6 wheels roll very nicely, and I was a bit concerned about that because on the underside he does have, as you can see there, bits protruding. It's all for knee pads, waist skirts, and a chest of the robot mode, all somewhat sticking out. Any one of those could easily catch and prevent the wheels from rolling and just be skimming across the floor. But I'm pleased to say he's rolling quite well, just fine. I do like how everything more or less tabs together. Some lovely detailing on the side as well, very clear detailing, and extension of the ladder. If I move the camera back a bit, it's got a pretty good range to it as well. Can rotate out, so he's shooting fire at a building, or rather he's shooting water at the fire at the building, I should say. And on top of that, he comes with an additional feature. So all of these black pegs on the back you can see do extend down. It's just plastic, but you can see they all come down, and he can have the ability of being somewhat elevated and fighting an actual fire. It's a nice gimmick, but it is a gimmick nevertheless. It's not going to affect too much. It's just something that you can do, and nice that they thought of it. Probably very true to life of an actual fire engine of this model. But aside from the detailing, the other things I really like is the lights. There's a nice sort of clear orange plastic used to give that kind of translucent effect. I like the fact that the wing mirrors, like with the other 2 releases, are rubber, so you're not going to break them. It's just built very, very well. Looks very stoppy. Tiny bit of gappage at the front. Maybe that's the only thing I'd say against it. and the transformation is quite good. The instructions were fair, but honestly after a while you can work it out for yourself. You're just going to do a couple of steps beforehand, but broadly speaking it's a very good, very big fire engine. And he does come with some weapon storage, which if I recall matches the G1 toy from back in the day. His two guns fold up and tab on either side of the ladder. It's not the most definite connection, but once they're on there, they're on there. And he has a much more armoured look to him, so he's actually riding into battle. That's quite cool. They're quite sizable guns, so it works with a bot of this scale. I will say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he comes with two other accessories, long accessories, which I believe are much more for the repair bay, which we'll get to in a minute. I don't think there's anywhere to store them in this mode, but I'm happy to be corrected if someone knows different. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside Navigant, MMC's release in his vehicle mode. Yeah, very similar. You can see the translucent red lights, you can see the black smoky windows. I do have tabbing in issues on this release, sadly, but that's how they look together. Looks quite cool. And here he is alongside MMC's Medicus in the alt mode. This is what I was saying. I would have liked something like this kind of window decoration going on than the smoky black, but certainly I think you would have had light blue with light blue. It would have looked a bit odd maybe, but when you put all three of them together, as good as this set looks, I think you can see what I mean, how the black window comes across maybe a little bit dead, and it's there to counteract maybe the solid colour of the body. Whereas if that was black on First Aid or Medicus, I don't know, maybe that would look a bit odd. I quite like that kind of misted blue there. I think that's a very attractive blue and breaks up the colour nicely. I would have liked that on Navigant, and I can understand why they didn't go with it on this, but again, I think that black, particularly in such a solid strip on the front of the cab, can come across a little bit dead, which I think is just a bit of a shame. Not a deal breaker, just a tiny bit of a shame. But that's how all three of them look together in their alt modes. It's again shaping up very nicely. A different company, different toy range, but here he is alongside X-Transbots. I'll say it again, Big Load, their version of a long haul. Really big bots going on here. Big dump truck, big fire engine, going to lead to big combiners. But that's pretty cool, seeing these two together. Probably not too wrong in terms of scale. I imagine a real world version of long haul would look quite large. So yeah, that's how these two look. Two different companies, of course. Now this might surprise people. Here he is alongside Generation Toys Powertrain, their version of their Motormaster, which is kind of targeted as a chug third-party scale, but I would say the vehicle mode probably isn't all that far off Fans Toys Road King, because this doesn't scale too far off Takara MP44 Optimus Prime with the trailer. So yeah, I kind of worked to the assumption that this is as good an MP scale of Motormaster as you'll find out there, and this is how he looks alongside with Hotspot or Ignis. Very big, very good. Obviously Motormaster has a longer trailer, but broadly same sort of width, same sort of scale, and certainly would be similar sort of height. We have seen some comparison images going around of Ignis alongside Roadkill, Fans Toys version of Motormaster, so again you've got that combiner limb vibe and how they're suited between different companies. So that's how they look together, again going down a big bot vibe. Okay, let's get this guy into his battle mode, shall we? And here he is in his battle mode, I guess. I was never a fan of these base modes for combiners. They don't look fabulous, they're very gimmicky. But even then, I think what I don't like about them, and a lot of people have said it, it looks quite stupid. Yes, it is something you can do, but really it was only something the toys did. It wasn't even incorporated into lore or a storyline. Really, I can't see Hotspot having a repair bay in any way, shape or form. He's going to lead from the front, and really First Aid is going to be the repair, if anything. But it is a feature from the toy back in the G1 days, and it's no different here. It's fine. I mean, it houses the guns, and I think I've done it right. I wouldn't say the instructions are massively clear. There's only about 5 slides to it. It says to plug in these extendable arms, which are the other accessories that he comes with, and at least to this point, and for what we've seen so far in the video, I can't see any other mode or any other point where Hotspot or Ignis can use these. These are just bendy arms that go onto the side of the cabs. Bit of a tight connection there. Just bit of care might need to be going into it. It's a very short connection, but it is a little bit snug. The guns as well, they more or less just sit on those extendable pegs that he uses for his truck mode. There is a groove for it. I think I've done that right, but again, it's not massively clear. And this is just what he would look like with the other two of his team if he was repairing them. I mean, it's a feature you can do, and maybe it would look better with MicroMasters or Headmasters, but it's something that they have thrown into the set. It's a bit haphazard, but it is a thing. And no, I'm not going to do a comparison to this mode because aside from Metroplex or Fort Max, I haven't really got many other bases to use. Now, I don't normally put these things into their combined modes whilst I'm reviewing them, but it's probably something I should be doing more of because this is another mode of Hotspot, of Ignis. So here he is in his Defensor frame mode. It's a much more involved transformation getting him to this step, and I'm not saying for 1 second I've done everything right. I found it very hard to understand some of the instructions at some of the points. The back and the shoulders, I haven't done these parts particularly well. And without any limb bots in here, because I haven't transformed up Navigant to take the weight of the leg, he's more or less leaning backwards because the legs in this form don't take the weight alone. It does stand tall. The reason why I wanted to put it in this mode is I wanted to see what it looked like in comparison to some existing combiners, to see the size that we're dealing with. I think one thing that I'm thinking of with this set is if they've released a torso bot midway through, that does give us the assurance that they're happy with the combined form, they're happy with the combined frame. They should be because they've done Bruticus already. It's a similar format. But this is how he looks. It is a nice looking Defensor. I do like the head on it. I'll get it in for a closer look in a second. He's just a bit fragile when you pick him up. I'm not certain I've done everything right. That's the only thing, but I'm not going to get too hung up on it because when all the figures are released, I'll put it into a combined form, a final finished structure, and I'll review it properly then. Now, what I will say, he does come with alternative heads and face sculpts. So the head he's got on is, I guess, a more toon accurate head, I suppose. And he does come with a shouty face equivalent. You won't see it too much, but it's much the same as what he's got on. It's just the face itself, no eyes. Clips on and off fairly easy, but the face, if you can see the teeth, are very built into the same colour of the face and the cheeks itself, so there's not that much definition. I will say the other head that he comes with is a much squarer head. I'll try and get that into focus. And it's okay, I put the shouty face on that he comes with. So he comes with two faces. I will say two faces, but they only go on the one head. So this is I guess a toy accurate head. It's a bit more square. And only this face, a placid face, will fit on it. The nose will only fit so far on. And likewise, this other shouty face will only go onto that head. I don't know why they've chosen to do it that way. You would have thought if it's only the face paneling, they would make it somewhat universal so you can mix and match. But he does come with some accessories, of course. Now you can fit his guns onto the back as well, and there are some pegs to go on. Now, two problems with that. First of all is I haven't done the back correctly. It's slanted, and when you put the guns on, they kind of point inwards a bit more like that, and it just doesn't look very right, so I'll have to correct that myself. So he doesn't have to hold the guns, he can have them more as back cannons, which does make sense for the character itself. Looks quite good. There's very few images online at the moment, but I'll see if I can put up some photos if I get it transformed correctly. I haven't got much to show here, but onto some comparisons. Here he is alongside a sort of typical Masterpiece figure with Fans Toys Viper. This isn't going to be a full, true Masterpiece scale combiner, despite the size of Hotspot. I think we've just got to make that piece, and I've got to make that piece myself. It's not going to scale with some of the Toy Worlds, with some of the Zetas combiners. So when you get a Fans Toys style and a typical, again, 9-inch figure, this could look just that shade too short, however good it looks. It's not the scale we're dealing with here, but that's how they look together. But this is a comparison I did want to make, and really it's the only other Defensor in my collection. This is the Combiner Wars with the C+ upgrade kit from the original Combiner Wars release of their Defensor. This has been in my collection for a very long time. It's one I've been very happy with, and still am, really. The upgrade kits do sell this figure, but you can see how much this is going to dwarf it, and it is going to make quite a difference. I know there is an oversized version for this now, and it can maybe scale a bit more in your collection, much more going to that Masterpiece height, but I feel this Defensor could look a bit more complete in that sense. This guy's very armoured up. You can see he's very heavy on the chest pieces, very much on the torso, and this guy's much more of the solid blue with very little added kibble on. But that's how they look side by side. So what's my final view on Spotty 2 Hottie? Well, it is a very surprisingly large bot, and it really kind of caught me by surprise how big it was. And its kind of features as well. There's things about it I really wasn't expecting to like as much as I do. I'll say this from the start. I'm not the biggest fan of the all-in-one feature. I'm happy to admit I haven't owned their version of Bruticus and Combaticons. I have heard good things about it, but I've always been of the mind of if you're making a combiner, use faux parts because I'd rather it look complete. MMC said, no, we're going to do all-in-one. All the hands, all the feet, all the limbs are going to be built within the figures, the head as well. And I'm never too keen on it, but getting this guy and all of the flaps that he's got and the interbending parts that cascade down and fold away, it really makes for a very good figure come the end of it. It does a lot. There is so much heft here. He's got very good presence and build. MMC do very good figures, as I've said before, so much more hits than misses. But I just wasn't expecting it to be the size that it was. It's an absolute giant. And with that comes with a lot of playability. I do like how fairly simple it is to get from robot mode to truck mode. I do like the fact that they included the base, even if I think the base designs are largely stupid. But they thought to include it. Turning it into combine mode is the hardest bit, and it is fiddly, but I guess it's all necessary steps. This is where I feel that it could have been made simpler had they had a shell and faux part. But then what do you do? I think it was Generation Toy who did their Defensor, and they had a trailer for first aid. It was like a caravan wagon that would make up part of Defensor's arm. I also think as well, and I'll say this more for when the combined video comes round, is I do think that the mantle for best Defensor has yet to be claimed. I think there's still offerings out there. No one's really nailed it so far. I think the guns look a little bit funny on him. I think they sit a bit odd on the hands. I do understand they're made more for Defensor. By the way, there's one thing I meant to say about the guns. You can get these repair bay arms and put them into the bottom of the arm. There is a port to plug it into, and then like a midway port as well, halfway up the turret, to which you plug in and he gets kind of a long rifle effect. And I've seen people sort of having him holding it down between his arms like a stick to stand with. I guess it is a form of weapon storage. It just looks a bit odd. But then double barrel guns have been synonymous with Defensor before, and Hotspot as well, I suppose. But I didn't mention that in the video. It's something that you can do. But things like the ladder being able to fold completely flat down and not be an actual ladder on his back is a very welcome sight. The strength of the ankle tilt is very good. I like the fact that it has that real stocky presence, even to the point that you get very good ab crunch out of it. I wasn't expecting an ab crunch. It is good. It is very good. My only concern on the matter, and it's not a problem, but will this affect when it comes to scale? I think this is a very good scale for the combiner bots, the torso bots. He scales with Fans Toys Maverick very well. But I'm wondering when you put it alongside, say, some of the Masterpiece car bots, does he completely dwarf them? And even that, if you put him alongside Ironhide, I was never under the impression that Hotspot was that much taller. But I always feel that combiners were a bit of a law unto themselves. It really does pack a punch though. It has such good weight to it. The biggest downside to it is the price. I go on about it a lot, but this is retailing for something like £180. It's a lot of money. I wanted to get their Onslaught because I quite like Onslaught and I like to have him as a standalone character. And I think that's the most toon accurate one without looking too sacrificed, if you see what I mean. But again, I'm not dropping that kind of money on a character who's not one of the main characters, if you see what I mean. It's not an Optimus, it's not a Cyclonus. So Onslaught for 180 is a bit much. I feel a bit more accustomed to dropping that kind of money if it's part of a combiner team, if there's an end goal. And they do look good together. Even if you look at, say, Navigant, who is possibly the weakest release so far, even he stands out pretty well when you're put alongside the other two. I wish the eyes were maybe a little bit bigger, because the red, whilst it is reflective, is again a very dark red and it's a bit slanted. It does look very good. I think I was under the impression that X-Transbot's version of Hotspot was going to look better than this, but getting this in hand, I may regret saying that. I may eat those words. This does a very, very good job. It feels very sturdy, nothing's going to break. There's a couple of bits that pop off during transformation, but nothing that can't be reapplied. I guess the only things, like I said before, you can easily knock some panels like that open when you move the elbow. It's nothing that can't be rearranged, but he's very shoulder pad heavy, as is part of his alt mode, as is part of the combine mode, and you can end up bumping into him to getting some good poses. But then again, he can do the splits in robot mode, quite a wide stance, which I don't think other figures you can say the same for. Other than that, I'm kind of nitpicking on stuff. I think, you know, the robotic head for alt mode, the face could have done with a different colour for the mouth that's in the open position. It just looks a bit of the same colour spread. Again, that's nitpicky. The guns, as I say, could look a little bit big in his otherwise small hands, but it is meant for Defensor rather than Hotspot. I'm being real picky about what is a very good figure. Its price point is its biggest flaw. I feel it's probably worth 150, if I'm being honest, and 180 just seems a little bit too much. But it's not to say, it's not a recommendation from me. It's not to say you shouldn't get it. It's a very good bot. I've got this figure with my aerial bots at the moment, the kind of the two teams in unison. For me, it's just right. He's kind of the big muscle of the two teams. And whilst I've just said, should he be that size anyway, at least I feel between the aerial bots and Protectobots, he is of that right size. It has surprised me. It is very, very good. He's a nightmare to take photos of with a white light box, because his light blue features do disappear into the background. That's just a problem that I've got. But it's really caught me by surprise. I'm very glad I got it. And that's why I gave the early slice look as to how it will look in combine mode, which we'll go through on this channel. I will pick up the other two bots. I've got them on pre-order, and we'll do a proper combination video. Hopefully I would have worked out the backpack by then. Based on this, I give this figure 4.5 Rodimus Star Badges. And really did catch me by surprise. It's a very good bot, very chunky, very good fun, very good playability. And yeah, it's what can I say? I think it was a bit of a shame that they took so long to get this figure out. But I am pleased in a way, because it's their way of saying, we've got this set done. They've released a torso bot that if you wanted, you could buy 2 first aids and 2 streetwise. It doesn't have a Defensor now, if you wanted. But other companies who are in the midst of doing combiners, one in particular hasn't released their last Terracon, and we can't make a Abominus that way. At least we can get a head start and know that there is a conclusion waiting for finishing Defensor. And there we go, that is my review of MMC's PS-23 Ignis, their version of a G1 Hotspot. I'll put some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and hit that subscribe button, because I will see you on the next one.